Hello everyone, and welcome back to another adventure. Today, I will be ranking all of the coasters that were operating at Six Flags Fiesta Texas when I visited. So let's just jump right into this. Six Flags Fiesta Texas is one of two Six Flags theme parks in Texas. The park boasts a collection of 12 coasters, and when I visited last June during Roller Coaster Rodeo, unfortunately I was there before Kid Flash opened, but I got to get up close with the track and supports before the coaster was built, so I'll take that. But now let's get into the list. And starting off at number 11, we have Streamliner Coaster, now named Batgirl Coaster Chase. This is a Zamperla Junior coaster, and it literally consists of 2 right turns and 1.5 hills after the drop. The trains are tiny, and the only reason I rode this coaster was because they opened it up for full park ERT during rodeo. At number 10, we have Pandemonium. This is just the typical Pandemonium clone, and I'm not really a fan of these clones because, honestly, they make me sick. But they do have some okay forces and a little airtime. I just can't justify ranking it higher because it makes me sick. For number 9, we have Boomerang Coast to Coaster. When I rode this Vekoma Boomerang, the ride had received all new vest restraints and new brakes and control systems. So the ride was running pretty smooth for a Boomerang. Unfortunately, I rode this later in the day and hadn't drank enough water, so it made me a little queasy, but the forces were good and the inversions were pretty whippy, and with it not having such as bad of a rattle and no headbanging at all, it was actually pretty tolerable. For number 8, we have Roadrunner Express. This is one of the newer Aero Mine trains, and it's pretty fun, with some really good terrain interaction, as it is right near Iron Rattler, so it makes some pretty good use of the cliff wall. The helixes are pretty forceful, although the ride has a pretty nasty vibration to it, and it's not the most thrilling, so I couldn't really rank it higher. At number 7, we have Poltergeist. I definitely found this to be the best out of the 3 Flight of Fear clones that I've been on. The station had phenomenal theming, and the trains are a little small, but not bad. The launch is phenomenal and very punchy. The inversions and transitions are whippy, with some really good forces in the valleys, and some surprising forces going into some of the inversions as well. Honestly, the only issue with the ride I had was the stabling of the restraints and the fact that we sat on the brake run for almost 10 minutes in the blazing sun while the operations were absolutely crawling. But honestly, Poltergeist was a really fun ride, and I can't wait to get back and do it again. For number 6, we have Goliath. This is another Bat clone, just with a different name, but this was the most intense Bat clone I've been on so far. All the Bat clones have really forceful and snappy inversions, even the vertical loop, because most are pretty pointless, to be honest. But this had really good forces in the valleys, and honestly, it felt like it was going to rip my legs off. Like, holy crap, this was intense. Although it was not the smoothest Bat clone I've been on, I still really enjoyed it, and honestly, the inverted coaster model just is not my favorite model, and that's why I don't really have any inverts very high. At number 5, we have Superman Krypton Coaster. This one was an absolutely amazing floorless coaster, and the only negative I had with the ride was the front had a pretty nasty rattle and roughness to it, but the back was very smooth. The drop is funky and amazing with a small pop of airtime, and the inversions, especially the Cobra roll, are very whippy. The drop off the mid-course brake run has just insane whip, and the ride is really amazing and just fun, and it's super forceful in the valleys. Good helixes and turns, and I love the interaction with the cliff wall, especially the way it kind of does a little helix before the main drop on top of the cliff wall, and then you dive down before rising back up again in the other high-speed turnaround. It's kind of like a helix almost, but much larger. And it was cool because during Roller Coaster Rodeo, we got to walk into the infield and see empty trains cycling. and get right up close with the 2 interlocking corkscrews, which again offer some really good whip when you're on the ride. At number 4, we have Batman the Ride. This was the original Freespin, and holy crap, there was definitely no braking or magnets on the controlling mechanism for the flipping. It was just out of control. On every hill, I was either getting a full flip or a half flip, and the double up, I almost always ended up upside down and being raised and dropped on my head. I also ended up upside down, coming into the upper portion of brake run a few times. I mean, the train immediately flipped right back over and upright when we entered that part and the brakes actually hit, but it was still interesting to come in that position. The somersaulting sensation is something that I've always loved on these 4D free spins, and this one just magnified that like tenfold because of just how insane it was. And the ride was just super forceful too. And I don't hate the free spin trains, as the vest restraints add a nice bit of padding to the ride, so that way you're not getting tossed and turned and jostled around as much. And just overall, this was like really good, and I'm surprised that it ranked as high as it did for me, because like, it's a free spin, and as much as I love the free spins, I really did not expect this one to be as good as it was. Now, to begin the top 3, we have Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster. Another first of its kind, and wow, does this thing pack a big punch. Again, let's just knock out the couple negatives first. These should hopefully be fixed by now, because the park was going through a restoration and maintenance effort of the ride. But the soft straps on the trains definitely dig into your shoulders, and the ride has a pretty nasty rattle in some of the valleys. But it wasn't too bad and didn't deter from the ride experience too much, because the pacing on this is just phenomenal. Every element either tries to throw you out of the train or rip your head off. The drop has phenomenal airtime, and all of the valleys have insane G-forces. The inversions are all packed full of whip, and I especially love the serpentine maneuver high off the ground, where you're just snapping from one direction to the other before dropping down and another ejector pop of airtime. This ride is just absolutely insane and out of control, and probably the second most insane coaster experience I've been on, right behind X2. And the only reason to me X2 is more insane is just because when you get off X2, you have no idea which way is up. On this one, it's just insane back-to-back elements and insane pacing with just crazy whip and, like I said, just airtime galore. And besides the soft straps, the train is pretty comfortable. I like the single rail design. I always have, because it's very freeing and opening, not having anyone sitting next to you. For number 2, we have Iron Rattler. This ride is very powerful as far as G-forces, and has some pretty good airtime pops. The first drop is by far my favorite drop on an RMC Hybrid. With the twisted nature and airtime, it provides some pretty good whip. The ride has the most comfortable hybrid trains, and I absolutely love the interaction with the cliff wall, as it uses the wall the best out of any coaster in the park, hopping up and down off and on it, and even going into it for that last final dive into it before turning and popping up into the brakes. The step-ups are fun, the wave turns are okay, and the quarry crawl was not too bad when I went there. Personally, I do find that second drop off the quarry wall to be a little bit overrated, but honestly, that was still pretty fun, and I just overall love the intense positive G-forces Iron Rattler has, as well as the airtime, because it's a nice mix of the two. Most RMCs have more ejector airtime. This has a nice mix of floater, flowjector, ejector, and positive G-forces, and is very smooth. And now we have reached my favorite coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and that is Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger. I'm not kidding when I say this coaster is a lot of fun. The Beyond vertical drop adds an extra little pop, and of course the airtime on the drop and drop off the mid-course is phenomenal. There's also great airtime on that triangle-like hill and on the entrance into the final brakes. The barrel roll has good hang time, but a weird little like shuffle shake at the top of it. And the helixes are very forceful. All of the elements have good whip, and the vest restraints were super comfortable. Plus, there's some really good theming in the queue, and the ride just paces very well overall for a B&M dive coaster. Most of them, like SheiKra at Busch Gardens, focus more on being long, drawn out, and graceful. And while this one is still very graceful, the ride features a lot more snappiness and whip to it, probably because of the smaller nature of the track and trains. and the way the elements are shaped. The only issue I had with the ride is it did have a little bit of a shuffle on the outside seats, but that didn't detract too much from it, as the middle seats were very smooth. But those are my personal rankings on the coasters of Six Flags Fiesta Texas. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have been to the park, let me know what your rankings are. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time on another adventure.